It is time for us to come to my constituency, if you understand what I mean. I mean the women constituency. It's still a month, so we can just flaunt it and put it out there in your face. Well, we thank you for celebrating us when it was International Women's Day. And remember, we are in the month of March, so it's Women's History Month. To that end, we brought on the show today someone who is a formidable leader, someone who's accomplished a lot in various sectors, even sectors that are male-dominated. She is Ayo Fatoki-Maji, and she is the Executive Director, Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
Glad to have you join us. Your first time on Early Exchange.
Very first time.
I wish we had a bell. I would ring it for you.
Why not?
All right, sir. It's Women's History Month. Let's look at women empowerment, empowering women to become impact leaders. So, looking at the history of women over the years, time even before I was born, women have been pushing for change. They have been changing the narrative. Until this age, women are still in the business of trying to build a world of equity. So, how do you see the journey so far for women globally and Africa women?
Thank you very much. I think I was reading a few days ago, perhaps at the beginning of the month, just researching on the International Women's Day and going back to how the entire movement started. And I realized that the International Women's Day has been celebrated for over a century, started by some German ladies. So the narrative didn't start today. What we have, the situation we have today, is something that has persisted over the years, over decades. But I must say that yes, some progress has been made in the bid to advance the cause of women, to recognize the contribution of women, to provide opportunities for women globally, perhaps better in some other climes than Nigeria, than the African continent, but the journey is on. I'd just like to say, the journey is on. Thank you.
All right, talking about International Women's Day, the theme for this year is invest in women, accelerate progress. How will you assess the level of investment in women when it comes to Africa? What are some of the critical challenges that are still, creating a setback when it comes to investment in women? And also, let's look at the perception in society about investment in women.
I think the results speak for themselves to a very large extent. I would say that the investment could be better. Much could be done in the area of investing in women. And when we talk about investment in women, we're talking about tangible and measurable opportunities given to women, tangible and measurable investments that have been made to accelerate the progress of women on the continent. And very easily, if you point to the area of education, there are more girls out of school than boys. In Nigeria, they're talking a percentage of about 30% of girls between 9 to 12 are out of school. You look at economic opportunities. How easy is it for women to access funding, for business opportunities? You look at land ownership. How easy is it for women to, first of all, afford the land, or even in some cases, have, land inheritance implemented seamlessly? It's easier, for the male gender to say, okay, we've inherited land, perhaps than for women in some areas, not all, to be honest. So the investment in women could be much better, across the continent. But like I say, the journey is on.
Let's
We
look
do
at
see, women coming out more and more, heading businesses, but a lot more could be done.
So in spite of all the work that has been done, we still have a high percentage of girls out of school in Africa. What do you think are the challenges to the investment in women or sustainable investment in women?
I think, first of all, there has to be the willpower for countries, for governments, for leadership in these countries to put the fortune, the lots of women, consciously working towards that. And investment in women, or the outcomes, rather, for women development is affected by several factors. There's the family setting, there's the educational setbacks or inequalities in the area of access to education. There are cultural, traditional issues that also do affect the ability of women to advance as more than they actually are. There's the issue of legislation, women in power, women in governance. We know that on the continent we haven't done as well, but a country for Rwanda perhaps is doing much better than Nigeria in terms of women in leadership, women in government. So the policies, the structures, the enabling institutions to advance the rights and the opportunities for women all need to work in sync. Coming to the health sector, women, bear the brunt of the failures of in that sector. Why? Because women, just even by nature of their physiology, perhaps sometimes do need more access to health care, to good health care. And so all of these are missing to a large extent. So they all do have an impact on the lot of women, to put it that way.
Let's talk about women and leadership, women in leadership positions, which you're one of them. If they could look at women who are in leadership positions, you have a lot of them. We can mention several names, Sokojo, Wialanda, so you, even Blessing too. She's a leader, But let's look at some of the systemic challenges that are associated with women occupying leadership positions. What has been the experience, especially in a place like Nigeria, and then the disposition to women leadership in Nigeria?
Okay, starting from the experiences and then disposition to women leadership. So the experience, you want to look at how easy it is for a woman to emerge as leaders, as a leader. Take it to the political sphere. We know that it is rough and tough within the political parties. And yes, we have ladies, we have women who are prepared, to put themselves forward for, political office, political position. But at the end of the day, whether it's by the sheer number of the terrain that they have to navigate, the sheer number of men who are vying for these positions, the fact that men tend to bond with each other. And sometimes we just find that women get edged out, not because they're the weaker candidates, but they just get edged out of the game. So there is understanding the political game and being able to play the political game from within the parties, right from the grassroots up to, local, state, and national levels. Also, there is supposed to be provision, I believe, for 35% of women, taking political leadership positions. We find that our National Assembly has had a challenge in just even passing that legislation through. Why? Because they are the ones women are competing against, and they form the majority of the National Assembly, whether it's at the House of Reps or in the Senate. They form the majority. So that legislation is not yet, seeing the light of day, even though there's push here and there by, formidable women groups to ensure that this gets done. I would like to come to the, disposition of people towards women in leadership. We live in a patriarchal society. We all know that. Even though women have continued to try to emancipate themselves, first of all, we encourage women, be sure you're qualified, put in the work, get in the necessary qualifications, make sure you're up to the task. In fact, from recent incidents we have seen, society appears to be less forgiving to women. I'm going to refer to the issue of corruption and all of that, in which one or two women, have been fingered or have been named, for allegations have been made, against them for corruption. And the way, society, media, and all of that have gone to even make it a media trial and pointing to the fact that they are women. Meanwhile, before you mention one better Edu, they have loads of men who have gotten away with bigger numbers. In fact, Beta Edu's allegation is child's play compared to, some of the allegations against men, and some that have even been found to be true. We have people in leadership today in our National Assembly who still have pending matters against them in the area of corruption. So, shall I say, people are less forgiving when it comes to women, talking about disposition, to women in leadership. So, for women, you need to try twice as hard. You need to be above board and, show that, yes, you're certainly above board when it comes to being principled and, just doing things right. We take it as a responsibility and place that obligation on ourselves, because you don't want to start, defending and trying to justify things that probably would be forgiven the opposite sex, but when it comes to women, it's harsher and, less forgiving.
So what is the role of women in this harsh treatment towards women in leadership? There is a thing called pull her down syndrome, PhD. What's your take on that?
I'll say the role of women as a woman leader is that we should support our own, support our own, train our own, mentor our own, give our own opportunities, So, you mentioned pull her down syndrome, but I pray that, there's less and less of that happening. And then I'm aware of many women groups that are investing in women and girls to empower them, help with self-esteem, help with self-confidence, help with knowledge, with capability, with competence, just to make sure that they are well prepared and well seasoned to aim for the highest positions and highest personal vision that they can have for themselves. So.
All right, let's look at some of the challenges being faced or the concerns about women in politics. When it comes to family life, the role of a woman or women is very crucial. But you observe that in this climate, most of the political meetings are always in the nine. These activities are somehow not too healthy for women. And so there are these concerns for women. How do we handle these concerns, especially for women that are married or that have kids and they're concerned about their men or their husbands? How do we marry these? The role when it comes to leadership, a balance with family life.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was not going to go there, that these meetings are held at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. And of course, the sight of a woman, amongst so many men at that hour, on its own appears somehow. But women will continue to engage. Women should continue to engage. There are some of those things that are discussed at those hours that women can engage around and about without necessarily having them to be at those hours. So a two-way dialogue. And that is not to say that we don't have some men who are actually collaborative and encouraging, to women. So the more we get of he for she's men, who understand these constraints, getting them over to a side and working hand in hand with them, that also helps. But it's just a continuous process of engagement, recognizing that some of these are intentional hurdles and obstacles that are put in the way of women to discourage them from moving forward. So understand the landscape and understand the game that is being played. And when you need to step out, step forward, you do that, So against the background of the traditional society and all of that, I believe that is changing. We're not there yet, but that is changing. There's an understanding that sometimes there's a price to pay when you want something. Nothing good comes easy, for accomplishment, for leadership, for being in the room when it matters, getting a seat at the table. Sometimes there's a price that the woman has to pay. It's just being very clear what your objective is, what you're trying to achieve, and engaging the right people, getting as many people to collaborate with you, and sponsors. That's another thing that would help women, sponsorship. Who's putting your name forward? Who's speaking up for you when you're not there? So all those also matter.
All right, so for sponsors, the women will need both male and female to do that.
Certainly.
But the women will also need financial sponsorship. That brings us to business, women in business. So it is on record that Africa has the highest number of women entrepreneurs. So Africa taking the lead in terms of women entrepreneurs, what do you think has fueled that? Why do we have very industrious women in Africa?
I'm going to speak for Nigeria, and I'm going to say, as a people, we're resilient people. We're a resilient people. And over time, with the empowerment and the enlightenment and the encouragement that has come the way of the girl child, we have seen women go for what they want. We've seen women pursue their goals with, eagle-eye focus. We've seen women mentors. We've seen women who have accomplished and been achievers in the past mentor the upcoming ones. So they're role models for women and girls now, much better than we had perhaps in decades past. For some of us, it's our parents. And I'm not necessarily saying an educated parent, but you saw a woman who, in spite of, limited education, still pushed against the odds. Industrious. And there are many of them, how many meters from here, even in Balogun there, industrious women who know about importation, exportation, and all of that, despite the fact that their literacy is a bit limited. So we've seen self-motivated women, we've seen women who've also been encouraged by mentorship and all of that. So you talk about financial inclusion and all of that. I know that there are banks that have desks now and products that are geared towards supporting women in business. There are various organizations and initiatives that are geared towards educating women, financial education and all of that. So I believe there's more and more support for women to access funding and financing, but more still needs to be done in that area. And I'm going to quickly come into women in tech as well. I personally know of a venture that has set up funds that are particularly geared towards women in tech. So we do have those initiatives coming up every now and then that are designed to support initiatives that are being promoted by women. So that has helped.
So you are the executive director of an organization that wants to build leadership in Africa. So how, as executive director, how do you intend to do this and bring in other African women building their leadership capacity?
Thank you very much, Blessing. Yes, so I currently lead the Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa, like you mentioned. We're an organization that is focused, we say, on developing the next generation of leaders for the African continent. My immediate remit covers the West Africa region, and what we do is aim for leaders, individuals who have accomplished some success in their personal or professional endeavors, and focus them on a different kind of leadership, which is leadership for social impact. So we do that by bringing them into training, development, empowering them with skills that draws their attention to gaps we have in society and inspires them to take action as they can on a personal level to address those gaps that they may have recognized within their communities, within their countries. Don't forget that these are highly accomplished individuals, like I said, both male and female. And they have, over the years, steadily come up with very interesting initiatives and interventions to drive impact within Nigeria and Ghana, where I supervise, and the rest of West Africa. We're part of an African body. So currently we have almost 500 fellows on the Africa continent, leaders from diverse backgrounds that are moving the needle to create a better society, across the continent for African citizens. So we do have fellows who are focused on education, creating institutions that are bound to make a change, on the continent. Institutions that imbibe leadership, from the young age through tertiary education, giving opportunities also to take on leadership roles. We do have fellows working in the health space, technology space, women empowerment, gender initiatives, food, climate, and all of that. And even just pushing for good governance, which is very essential to leadership. Just ensuring that, there's advocacy for good and transparent governance. So these are areas in which our alumni, do have initiatives across the continent, and it's a good work they're doing, I must say.
All right. When it comes to leadership in West Africa and the course of training leaders, engaging them, what are some of the wrong perceptions about leadership, the wrong beliefs about leadership in this climb, and then what should be the ID template when it comes to leadership?
Okay. One of the wrong perceptions that really jumps out is even the motive to become a leader in this region or in Nigeria. What's the motivation to be a leader? Is it because you want to amass wealth? Is it because you just want more authority? Or just for the title? For egos? So the motivation for wanting to be a leader, I think that is a conception or a misconception that in our program we emphasize on. We're talking about servant leadership. We're talking about a leader who has the interest of the people you're serving at heart. A leader who puts others before themselves. A leader who is looking out to build a better, quality of life for the people you're leading, for those you're leading. Whether you're in the political space, you're in the professional space, whatever it is. A leader should always be looking at adding value and making positive change. So that is a gap that we see in people who are vying for leadership. The motivation is wrong. The motives are wrong, a lot of the times. And then, we talk about being a values-based leader. In Aliwa, the organization where I work, your values determine who you are. What are your values? Are you talking integrity, being ethical, being honest, being accountable, holding yourself accountable, focusing on results, being responsible and all of that. So your values determine how you would lead. And in the program that we run, we encourage that you lead by values. And you go through a series of seminars and programs that continue to put you in a position where you have that self-inflection and self-reflection all the time. Who am I as a leader? What's driving me? What's my motivation? How am I leading? What am I seeking to achieve? So that's another area in which our program, tries to educate, and we hope, for the region really, that we must lead by values, rather than by other factors that seem to motivate people for seeking leadership roles and positions.
All right, as we wrap up, what are the skills that will enable women to become impact leaders? What skills would they need?
Skills? Okay, I think first of all, come from a place of conviction, have a vision. Skills are good, but you must have a personal vision of what you're trying to achieve. And then, the passion for what you're trying to achieve is also very important. So those are like, personal to you. I really have a picture of what I think things should be like if you want to make, create social impact. And what's social impact? It's adding value to the society, in which we live. So you've seen women drive social impact from a point of even personal experience, what they've been through. They grew up missing one thing or the other, and they've decided to, devote competence, capability, resources to filling, those gaps. So yes, have a vision for how, for the impact you want to create, have passion for it, and then the skills and competencies. You've got to get training for whatever it is you want to deliver on. Financial literacy, as much education as you can, networking, getting the right people around you, getting sponsors and mentors, people who walk the path that you want to walk, are able to also guide you.
Before we wrap up, let's talk about, because it's crucial as well, let's talk about the role of men in empowering women, in accelerating their progress. Now, let me shake the table. The challenge with most men is not that the women are playing the leadership role, but the perception about women who are strong and independent. And then the fact that they're creating a balance with the family life, the fear that, okay, the home front will suffer for it. What's your advocacy to men in this regard?
Well, the advocacy to men in this regard would be, you know, as a man, what are your own goals? You know, first of all, you're coming out of a family. Your mother, your siblings, your sisters. If you had sisters who are high achievers, a mother who's, you know, focusing on accomplishment, and, you know, the way you were raised, there was really no difference between you and your female siblings. You know, you were all given equal opportunity. You were all told to, you know, just follow your dreams and try and achieve your potentials. That kind of a man is likely to be an understanding husband who would realize that his wife has personal dreams and aspirations. And what he can do as her husband is to support her. Support her, you know, from the home front, you know, understanding that she may not be there 100% of the time, but when she's away, rather than castigate, oh, your mother has gone off again, is understanding. And he's able to even take out education and lessons for his own female children, you know, and his sons out of that situation. You know, that you can be a mom, you know, but we can balance the home. She's away, but nothing gets dropped in the home. You know, so an understanding and encouraging man, you know, who wants his wife to realize her potentials, I think is the ideal man.
We must thank you very much, Ayo Fatoki-Maji, the Executive Director of Africa Leadership Initiative, West Africa, for being with us on the show today. We hope to bring you back here some other time. It may not be Women's History Month, but in the near future, to talk more on women in leadership and how women can, African women particularly, can be groomed into leadership so they can make impact. Thank you for your time on the show.
Thank you.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.